I don't know what it feels like to be targeted by the police as I go about my daily life. I do know what it feels like to be held down against my will. And I know what it feels like to have pressure on my neck, choking out my ability to breathe. 1/3 of women have experienced sexual assault and/or other forms of domestic violence. Most of us who are perceived as women live with some level of trauma and fear related to this under-acknowledged pandemic. And we will not allow them to weaponize our traumas and fears. When they talk about rape and domestic violence to justify not defunding the police, tell them, not in my name. Tell them they don't care about us. Less than 1% of rapists are incarcerated, and the so-called criminal justice system often criminalizes and re-traumatizes survivors. Tell them the police are also perpetrators. 40% of them engage in domestic violence, as compared to 10% of the general population. There are many accounts of police raping and sexually abusing women in their custody, overwhelmingly Black women. The majority of sexual assault in prisons is committed by prison staff. White women, tell them, we know many of our foremothers consented to their communities lynching Black men falsely accused of raping or intending to rape white women. We know this was not an issue of a few bad apples, that it happened at the rate of 6 murders per month for 7 decades, 70 years. And we will not continue to participate in that long history of Black people being murdered in the name of protecting us from imagined assault. White women, tell them, the vast majority of the time, our abusers are white male family members, and for those in heterosexual relationships, white male partners. White women, tell them we know policing is not colorblind, that hundreds of Black men have been sentenced to death for the accusation of having raped white women, while not one white man has been executed for raping a Black woman. Tell them this is the contemporary continuation of white men raping enslaved Black women with impunity, including with the consent of their white wives. White women, tell them we know what Amy Cooper knew, that our voices coming from our bodies can call forth the sanctioned violence of police against Black people. Tell them we refuse to support this agency of white supremacy and the myth that it will protect us. White women, tell them, not in my name. You may not use my trauma, which has primarily been caused by white men, as the justification for your existence and the racialized violence that inevitably accompanies it. Tell them we've been listening to Assata, and we know that we too have a duty to fight for our freedom, and freedom is not to be found in policing and prisons. Policing and prisons have not solved our pervasive sexual assault and domestic violence problems. They've contributed to them. Tell them it's time to invest in real solutions, to love each other and support each other, as Assata taught us. White foremothers, I know that you were legally and culturally treated as property, that you were disenfranchised and economically dependent. I know you were trying to survive, and I know that surviving by aligning with oppression destroys our souls, makes us dead inside and capable of becoming agents of more death and destruction. and survival is not freedom. I'm grateful for those of you who did fight for our freedom. And too often, that struggle happened on the backs of others, especially on the backs of our Black sisters and sisters of color, like when their domestic labor was exploited to enable white women to pursue middle-class careers. There are many ways of holding someone down and squeezing their life force out of them. A reckoning is needed. I know there are also some of you who dared to dream more expansively and to pursue real freedom and to commit to that process, even as they called you race traitors, even as you remained always suspect, even as you made mistakes and struggled to overcome your white racial conditioning. Thank you. Please be with us now as we seek to build on that legacy, as we attempt to heal ourselves and our ancestors and create more loving and liberatory possibilities for our descendants. I'm haunted by George Floyd calling out, "Mama." The familiarity and enormity of that call, evoking something far beyond biology and gender. I've been learning from Alexis Pauline Gumbs about revolutionary mothering as a queer collaboration with the future, an alternative building practice of valuing ourselves and each other and creating the world we deserve. This is where our justice and healing and freedom will come from. This is what we need to invest in, uplift, celebrate. Eternal Summer of the Black Feminist Mind, thank you. Audre Lorde Project, thank you. Safe Outside the System Collective, thank you. Solutions Not Punishment Collaborative, thank you. Anti-Police Terror Project, thank you. Community Ready Corps, thank you. Black Youth for the People's Liberation, thank you. Disability Justice Culture Club, thank you. Poor Magazine and Homefulness, thank you. Pleasureness Literary Academy, thank you. Reclaim Ugly, thank you. People's Community Medics, thank you. Boomshake, Music for the Movement, thank you. Segurite Land Trust, thank you. Indian People Organizing for Change, thank you. Safe Return Project, thank you. Bay Area Transformative Justice Collective, thank you. Critical Resistance and Oakland Power Projects, thank you. Communities United for Restorative Youth Justice, thank you. Richmond Revolution, thank you. All of Us or None, thank you. Auntie Francis's Self-Help Hunger Program, thank you. Crip Hop Nation, thank you. Sins Invalid, thank you. Moms for Housing, thank you. People of Color Sustainable Housing Network, thank you. East Bay Permanent Real Estate Cooperative, thank you. The Medea Project, thank you. Loving the Skin You Are In, thank you. Nafsiya Jami, thank you. Life is Living, thank you. Young Women's Freedom Center, thank you. Urban Tilth, thank you. Rich City Rides, thank you. Incite Women of Color Against Violence, thank you. The Blackout Collective, thank you. Black Visions Collective, thank you. Black Seed, thank you. Black Lives Matter, thank you. Movement for Black Lives, thank you. BYP 100, thank you. Black Alliance for Just Immigration, thank you. Project NIA, thank you. TGI Justice Project, thank you. California Coalition for Women Prisoners, thank you. Abundant Beginnings, thank you. Radical Monarchs, thank you. Movement Generation, thank you. East Point Peace Academy, thank you. Buddhist Peace Fellowship, thank you. Fat Rose and Fat Lib Inc., thank you. Rise Richmond, thank you. Peacock Rebellion, thank you. Fat Beats Produce, thank you. Turtle Tank School for Radical Purpose, thank you. Disability Visibility Podcast, thank you. Highlander Center, thank you. Fortify Community Health, thank you. The Boggs Center, thank you. East Bay Meditation Center, thank you. First Congregational Church of Oakland, thank you. City of Refuge, thank you. Glide, thank you. Frailty Myths, thank you. Soulfire Farm, thank you. Oakland Peace Center, thank you. Richmond Progressive Alliance, thank you. Partners for Collaborative Change, thank you. Thrive, East Bay, thank you. The Village in Oakland, thank you. Coalition on Homelessness, thank you. ACE Action, thank you. Yes World, thank you. Destiny Arts Center, thank you. Resistance Revival Chorus, thank you. The Nap Ministry, thank you. Culture Strike, thank you. Idle No More, thank you. People's Kitchen Collective, thank you. Causa Justa Just Cause, thank you. Arab Resource and Organizing Center, thank you. Immigrant Liberation Movement, thank you. Fireweed Collective, thank you. Allied Media Conference, thank you. Canticle Farm, thank you. Jewish Voice for Peace, thank you. Sunrise Movement, thank you. Berkeley Community Acupuncture, thank you. Berkeley Cop Watch, thank you. Radical Resilience Institute, thank you. Generative Somatics, thank you. Nepantla Center for Healing and Renewal, thank you. And of course, Creating Freedom Movements, thank you. And so many more organizations, individuals, convergences. We just have to pay attention. In a recent sermon, Zan West prophesied, "Every day I see things I imagine." What is the world that you imagine beyond white supremacy, beyond colonialism and nation states, beyond cis-heteropatriarchy, beyond ableism and capitalism and all forms of exploitation? What is the world that you are calling into being, that you are co-birthing, co-parenting?
That's all that I need to do, and I've got to give thanks for the joy of living my life with you. Some days I get weary when I'm tired of keeping on, keeping on. I look around and I see my work is not done.